The ocean keeps its secrets, but sometimes it sends one back. A ship appears on the horizon. No flares, no radio calls, no crew. Just a vessel drifting in silence, as if everyone on board simply stopped existing. Over the past 150 years, at least 5 ships have been found this way. Floating, intact, completely empty. And not one of these cases has ever been solved. Let's start with the oldest and most famous. On November 7th, 1872, a brigantine called the Mary Celeste departed New York, bound for Genoa, Italy. On board were 10 people. Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crew members. The ship carried roughly 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol. It was a routine commercial voyage across the Atlantic. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. 27 days later, on December 4th, 1872, a ship called the Dei Gratia spotted the Mary Celeste drifting roughly 400 nautical miles east of the Azores, Portugal. Captain David Reed Morehouse sent a boarding party. What they found made no sense. The ship was still seaworthy. Cargo was largely intact. Provisions and personal belongings sat untouched. But about 3 feet of water had flooded the hold. The lifeboat was missing. Navigation instruments were gone. And all 10 people had vanished. No signs of violence. No storm damage severe enough to explain abandonment. The ship appeared to have been left in a hurry. A British Board of Trade investigation found no clear evidence of foul play. Theories piled up over the decades. An explosion of alcohol fumes from the cargo. Insurance fraud. Mutiny. None of it held up under scrutiny. Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who created Sherlock Holmes, later wrote a fictional account that spread myths about the case, and many people still confuse his name for the ship, calling it Mary Celeste instead of Mary Celeste. Over 150 years have passed. The case remains open. Now let's move to the Arctic, 1931. The SS Baychimo was a 1,300-ton cargo steamer owned by the Hudson's Bay Company, built to haul furs and supplies along the northern coast of Canada and Alaska. On October 1st, 1931, the ship became trapped in pack ice near Barrow, Alaska. The crew waited. They set up camp on the ice and hoped the ship would break free. It didn't. The company ordered the crew to abandon the vessel and fly home. They left the Baychimo frozen in place, assuming the ice would crush and sink it within weeks. It didn't sink. It broke free. For the next 38 years, the Baychimo drifted alone through Arctic waters. Inuit communities spotted it. Passing ships saw it. People boarded it on at least a few occasions and found it still floating. Between 1931 and 1969, the ship was sighted 12 separate times, sometimes locked in ice, sometimes floating openly in the Beaufort Sea or the Chukchi Sea. No one ever mounted a full rescue or salvage operation. The Baychimo just kept moving, a steel ghost riding currents and ice flows year after year, decade after decade. The last confirmed sighting was in 1969. After that, nothing. The Alaskan government showed interest in locating the wreck in the 2000s, but the ship has never been found. It's presumed to have finally sunk or been ground apart by ice. But no one knows for sure. Now we cross the Pacific to 1955. The MV Joyita was a 70-foot merchant vessel operating in the South Pacific. On October 3rd, 1955, she departed the port of Apia in Western Samoa with 25 people on board, including passengers and crew. She was headed for the Tokelau Islands, a trip that should have taken no more than 2 days. She never arrived. 5 weeks later, on November 10th, the Joyita was found drifting over 600 miles off course. She was listing badly, partially flooded but still afloat. The ship had a reputation as virtually unsinkable because her hull was lined with cork. And yet every single person on board was gone. No bodies, no lifeboat, no life jackets on the ship. Cargo was missing. The radio was found tuned to the international distress frequency, but a wire had broken, meaning no signal ever went out. Something went wrong on that ship. And then 25 people made a decision to leave. But the ocean around the Joyita stretches for thousands of miles in every direction. If they got into lifeboats, none of those boats were ever found. If they fell into the water, no bodies ever washed ashore. 25 people walked off a floating ship into the Pacific and were simply erased. Now let's skip ahead 50 years to 2007. On April 15th, 2007, a 9.8-meter catamaran called the Kaz II departed Airlie Beach, Queensland, Australia, heading toward the Great Barrier Reef. On board were 3 men: Derek Batten, the skipper, age 56, Peter Tunstead, 69, and James Tunstead, 63. 3 experienced sailors on a well-equipped yacht with GPS, a working radio, and modern safety gear. 3 to 5 days later, around April 18th to the 20th, the Kaz II was spotted drifting 88 nautical miles off the northeastern coast of Queensland. When rescuers boarded, they found the engine still running. The GPS and radio were functioning. A laptop computer was switched on. Food was set out on the table. Life jackets were still stored on board, unworn. One sail had been shredded, possibly by wind, but the boat was stable. It was not sinking. All 3 men were gone. No distress call had been made. No emergency beacon activated. The bodies of Derek Batten, Peter Tunstead, and James Tunstead were never recovered. A coronial inquest delivered its ruling on August 8, 2008. The coroner concluded the 3 men likely drowned in what was described as a freak accident. The theory suggested one man may have gone overboard, perhaps while trying to fix the damaged sail or deal with the anchor, and the other 2 followed trying to help. But with no bodies, no witnesses, and no physical evidence of exactly what happened, that ruling rests entirely on guesswork. Many commentators criticized the verdict for its lack of proof. The Kaz II sat there with its engine running and its table set, as if the 3 men had simply been pulled through a door that didn't exist. Most people assume that modern technology has made these kinds of disappearances a thing of the past. GPS tracking, satellite communication, emergency beacons, automatic identification systems, and yet, according to 2025 data, 410 ships were abandoned at sea carrying over 6,000 crew members. That's a 31% increase over 2024. Many of these cases involve what the shipping industry calls shadow fleets, unregistered or poorly maintained vessels operating outside normal oversight. The ocean doesn't care about your technology. It swallows what it wants to swallow. What connects these 5 cases is the thing that makes them impossible to accept. Every ship was found in a condition that should have kept people alive. The Mary Celeste had food and water. The Baychimo was seaworthy enough to float for almost 4 decades. The Joyita was lined with cork and literally built not to sink. The Kaz II had working navigation, a running engine, and safety equipment nobody used. In every case, the ships survived. The people didn't. 5 ships? 0 survivors. 0 answers.